Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the apple picking story coloring right here. As you see right here is I went ahead and drew right here is an apple tree, and then right here is a art coloring right here of an apple in black and white, and of course you got one right here in color it is. And what you see right here is that the type of idea that more likely that I came up with is like whenever I start drawing pictures, it's like you had used like what you call like sketching it was, and basically showing you about that. I guess if they call it, abstract or something like that. It's like so far as talking about the skills, for intro art, it was that this type of stuff that I pretty much learned in art class. It was to where that I remember that getting like an idea for like drawing like an outline design, and of course it's like adding some more detail for the inside it was, and of course adding some shade it was, and I don't know if you call this a pastel, if I remember right, that pastel would be like you say for any type of intro work, it would be like what you call is like a darker lines it was. But I had intro art for 2 years of intro art, and I can remember that a lot of times the art teacher was talking about different things that details that you can add of course to your drawing it was, and I can remember that they would take off a few points of knowing about the details of course that they would between what was required to be included in in your drawing it was, and a lot of times that I would maybe include like what you call like maybe a leaf say for the apple it was, if I can remember right, that we did the apples, and then of course a few other type of artworks it was, but then I would draw like what you call like a shadow at about right here. It's like for the apple, go ahead and say draw a shadow. But right there you got black and white. Of course, a lot of us were probably thinking about with black and white, that knowing about that it's like that getting to something that's maybe more color it is. But basically that before I remember that. Like I may have said before, that talk about was like with crayons. It's like getting some ideas. It's like when drawing say an actual object, you go ahead and draw like say abstracted object, say outline, and then from there, and then filling out the details from there, and then but then right here you have right here is an apple right here, and I can go ahead and pick. Usually I see apples by the color of of a red. But right here is the root. You got the root about right here. It is. Get the root at about right here, and then knowing about that, and then adding in some details about right here. It's like for the apple it is. And a lot of times I remember that that when last time I've been apple picking was probably about early in '92. I think in 93, 94, I think it may have been 92, something like that. But I think somewhere out there in Illinois, my parents and I took the kids out to a place where you can go apple picking, and it was, and I can remember that it's like that family, we were there, and then knowing about that with the apples, it was that they probably think about it as like knowing about that. If you were to pick an apple, and then they would say that make sure that you wash it off real good, because of course that they would spray. A lot of times they would spray the apples just to prevent any type of pesticides from getting on there. It's like any type of pesticides it is, and I don't know, like talking about, it's like that if I could maybe draw out what I'm talking about, that more likely people's like, listen up children. But other than that, it's like if you have like we say a pesticide, maybe kind of like this right here, it's like I don't know what kind of bugs it more likely to do that be bothering the apples it was, but I'll go ahead and maybe pick a bug in random. You have like a bug right here. It's like a lot of times that they would include like have like 6 legs and land on an apple, and then of course that they would eat it to the core it is. Eat the apple to the core. But in a lot of ways that we were probably thinking about that you cut the apple in half, and of course you got the seeds in the middle. But I remember that at some point that there would be what you say times to where go out apple picking, and then there will be people say that you know, make sure you wash off the apple real good, and that sometimes that there are people probably thinking about it after they pick the apple, and it's like I remember that somebody there with me that was wiping the apple clean. It was, you know, just wiping it off. He's like, well, you know, I'll go and wipe it off, and I'll go ahead and, you know, so that way we can go and eat it. And I remember that it's like we would eat it, and somebody there was saying that, hey, sir, you know, I want to eat those apples because, you know, if you washed them off, you know, first. And so a lot of times we probably think about that yeah, with most of the apples it was that thinking about that if we don't wash them off, of course, and more likely that it's possible that you're probably thinking about that, hey, you know, it's recommended to go ahead and wash them before you eat them. It is. But anyway, that you have right here is you got the different colored apples. You got the green apple, and then of course you have see here, other colors. I don't know if any of us, you know, have ever seen, say, a purple apple. Got right here is a purple apple. But anyway, that if you go out, you know, apple picking, that a lot of us would think about, so you know, add some more details right here for the tree right here. But and of course you got with the leaves, and then with the branches and stuff. But anyway, that if most of us been apple picking, that a lot of times that there'll be like smaller trees. The last time I went apple picking, it was with my grandparents. It was, I remember that they would be like what you call a small tree. Some of them were kind of small, and some of them were pretty tall. I'll probably say on average that the apple trees there were about you know, at least you know, 3 feet, you know, tall, something like that. They had some apples on there. You know, a little kid, 10-year-old kid will be able to walk up to it and pick a few apples. It was. But on your hearing too, that knowing about that yeah, with the apples right here, and then that knowing about that I remember that you have a bowl of applesauce, and a lot of times I would call it, it's like, you know, for grass, you know, call it grasshopper dessert. And what was that reason for why I would call it the grasshopper dessert? It was more likely, it's like talking about, it's like that thing about, you know, picking an apple, it is, and just knowing about that yeah, outdoor insects more likely would get to it before I did, or something like that. It's like talking about having myself a bowl of grasshopper dessert. It was grasshopper dessert. You know, it's a type of dessert for applesauce. It is knowing about is if it's a fly or any type of bugs that get into the apples. It is knowing about that yeah, that I would like to have, you know, the apple first, you know, before the grasshopper gets it, or something like that. Anyway, that knowing about, it's like about how many feet is like talking about, you know, from how tall the tree is. But anyway, that I remember I heard that whenever last time I went apple picking, that they would spray the trees. It's like, you know, prevent pesticides from getting in there. And a lot of times I don't know, more likely they say that it's not really toxic, but just, of course, you know, to keep the bugs away, that they would spray, you know, around, you know, inside the trees and stuff, you know, just to keep the bugs away, of course, from the apples. It was. And I really would say that talking about with they would probably think about that you know, it's not really safe, of course, to eat it. And then, of course, if it's been there for a long time, a lot of people probably think about if the spray has been on inside the trees, inside the plant for, you know, for quite a while, then more likely that they probably say it evaporates whenever it's liquid. A lot of times they could probably think about whenever it's liquid. A lot of times they probably say it's highly not recommended to eat this, it's poisonous, or something like that. And the way I think about it, I'm like that, yeah, that knowing about that you know, anything that could be on the apple, it is that they could probably think about with any type of bug spray. It is that you think about is like, yeah, that you know, just like with wet paint, you know, I think about with wet paint, it is. It's like, next thing you know, people probably think about it, it's, you know, it's toxic if you touch it. You know, if you touch it, you're not supposed to touch it. You know, you're supposed to be. It's like you know, you're not supposed to smell it. You're not supposed to lick it or whatever. You're supposed to leave it alone. It's like whenever they spray for pesticides, it is. It's knowing about that. Yep, the apples are just on there for no trespassers. It is, but. the way I think about it, it's like if you go somewhere and then if you're going to be doing apple picking, it is knowing about for whatever color that you want, and then knowing about you cut the apple in half. You got right here's the seeds. It is, and we would probably think about that. Knowing about go out apple picking. If you if you collect about maybe 15, 20 apples, it is, and people were wonder that knowing about that if you pick a few apples and knowing about whichever ones that you can maybe you think you'll be able to reach, it is, because the way I drew this picture right here is showing you right here if there was an actual person right here, it is, and a lot of us will probably thinking about that that some of those apples depend on how high they were, it was that think about that it's like exactly if it was see here, if it was an 8-foot tree, it was more likely somebody were to have to reach up, and of course is to try to get an apple, it was. And a lot of times at the last time I went apple picking, it was is knowing about that somebody there would try to reach up and pick an apple, and then knowing about that it's too high up, or I can't reach it, but and I can remember that I think that they had trees trees there that I think a few of them were only about maybe 5 feet tall, something like that. They had apples on them, and the kids would be able to pick them and of course save them for later, whatever they want to do with them, and knowing about that they say that make sure you wash your hands and make sure you wash the apple, it is. So in a lot of ways, if I'm thinking about that, go out apple picking and just knowing about the fact about with the apple. The next thing you have to worry about, of course, is like, it's poisonous. It's like you can't eat it. You got to wash it or something like that. Yeah, I really don't know. Anybody who's ever been fishing before is know more likely if there is a point to where somebody that does like raw sushi or something like that, then maybe they go ahead and eat the fish right after they catch them, from going out fishing or something like that. But the way I think about with apples though is that knowing about that you pick an apple, and then if a kid gets hungry to where they really want to eat it, then more likely I would probably suggest that go ahead and wash your hands, and then knowing about to be aware about, of course, about what the apple's been around, and knowing about it's like how many bites did you take? Well, let's just say enough bites to where that knowing about is that for my homework, is assignment is knowing about really about maybe how big it was, and knowing about how to plant more, and of course to study science, of course, about how they grow, it is. But on your hand to knowing about it, it's like I guess you say have fun, of course, whenever you do go apple picking, it is whenever you go pick apples, it was spending time outside, and then showing and talking about it's like if you were to actually pick an apple, it is knowing about it's like maybe what kind it is, and knowing maybe about how does it taste, it is. And a lot of people probably think about really the only thing I really taste in apples more likely would be it's like what you call like maybe the juicy flavor of say between apple juice or something like that. It's like people probably think about you know what apple juice tastes like, huh? Well, that's what the apple tastes like. Okay, it tastes like apple juice. It tastes like apple salsa, or it tastes like apple pie. It's like talking about with apple pie. It tastes like apple Jello. Apple Jello. But the way I think about it, I like between if it's red or if it's blue apples. I don't know if anybody has seen blue apples, but more likely you probably think about any type of dessert, food coloring it is knowing about with blue apples it is. With blue apples, we probably think about, that represent is knowing about, the seasons changing. It's like so far as maybe talking about maybe too much rain or maybe not enough rain, whatever it is, or maybe a little bit too much sunshine, it is knowing about the whole reason to why maybe they change color, is knowing about the fact about, yep, you pick an apple and maybe you can pick a time of the season to where you can actually go out and pick it. But other than that, let's talk about it's like for the paper, to pick your size, and of course your color is knowing about the time of day. It's like for so far as talk about it's like for the story of apple picking, it is. Last time I went, of course, it knowing about remember the things that we did, but on the end too to talk about maybe the ideas for what you have in mind for what you want to do with those apples. But other than that, let's talk about between pick a recipe and pick your size and of course your color for your favorite apple. Let's talk about it's like for an apple picking story.